Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what is going on? It is your boy Speakerhead and welcome back to another video. When I was a kid, the first ever Transformers media experience was going to be the 1986 movie. And in that movie, I was introduced to the Junkions, which were my personal favorite Transformers out of all of them. And let's be honest, who couldn't love the Junkions? Whether it be Wreck-Gar with his sick facial hair, or any of the other background Junkions that popped up. I just absolutely love the concept of these Transformers being able to break apart and then put themselves back together in different ways. So once Hasbro started releasing some Junkions, I really started getting into the line. And now that they're introducing different varieties of Junkions, I'm all in. But today we're going to be taking a look at the first new variant of Junkion, that's going to be Scraphook. But before we get into this review, if you enjoy any of this sort of content, make sure to like and subscribe, it really does help me out. Also, a friendly reminder that one like equals one pat for my little buddy Doug here. Say hi, Doug. Also, if you enjoy any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. All the music on this label is completely royalty-free, so go ahead and use it for any of your content creating needs. Finally, I want to mention if you ever want to catch me live, I do stream over at Speakerhead Live on YouTube. But now that that's out of the way, let's get into the review. And of course, to start off this review, we're going to talk about accessories. Hey everybody, Speakerhead from the future here. So while editing, I realized I mentioned something at the very end that I didn't mention anywhere else in the video. And it's kind of important, so I figured I'd mention it right away at the beginning. So for those who don't know, this guy is a weaponizer, so his arms and limbs are able to come off easily. And then these parts can be attached to other figures to either give them weapons or extra armor. Like I said, I did want to mention this somewhere besides the end of the video because this is something important to know about this figure. But now that I let you guys know about that, back to past me. So to start off, he comes with two exhaust pipe attachments that are molded in a gray plastic. Then another accessory he comes with is going to be a spiky wheel attachment that I like to use as the arm shield. And that's also molded in the same gray plastic. Then finally he's going to come with a tow hook attachment for alt mode. And the hook from this is able to come out and I like to use it as his melee weapon. And once again, these accessories are molded in the same gray plastic we already talked about. So now that we're all done with accessories, let's actually talk about the figure. And to start this off, let's talk about his sculpt. And when it comes to the sculpt of this figure, there's some things I do like and some things I don't. When it comes to the head sculpt, I think it looks pretty solid. I like how they kept that rough and tough biker aesthetic for the face. I think it looks really good and fits the Junkion style quite well. I also like the welded eye patch he has, that's a nice little detail. Talking about the sculpt of the arms now, I'm not a huge fan of these. For the upper arms, I think they do look pretty cool, but I'm not a huge fan of how thin they are. When you compare the upper arms to the lower arms are a bit thicker, so it gives them a bit of that Popeye look. I'm also not a huge fan of how long the upper arms are compared to the lower arms. It kind of makes it look like his lower arms are stubby. But besides those gripes, I really do like the overall sculpt of the arms. I think they look pretty cool. Talking about the upper torso, there's not much to mention here, but I do like all the details they added. Then I'll talk about it again in paint, but I do like the Autobot symbol on his chest. I think that looks great and stands out from the rest of the figure. Talking about the waist and lower legs, it's not the greatest sculpt ever. Just like the upper arms, they do seem a little bit thin. Then talking about the lower legs and feet, I think overall they look pretty great. I like the grill for the feet, that just looks great and intimidating. And then I like how you can either have this gray plastic part exposed with some nice detail, or you can put the engine guns back in place and that also looks pretty great. And then a quick 360 view of this guy, he does have some waffles on him, but overall he does clean up fairly well. And he doesn't have too much of a backpack either, which is nice. But now that we're done talking about sculpt of this guy, let's move on to paint. Starting with the head, the only paint that's going to be on there is the orangish brown for the main head, and for the little eye on one side. Talking about the arms now, the only paint that's going to be on him is going to be for the upper arms. And that's going to be that tan color, which I do like and think matches the Junkion aesthetic pretty well. Moving to the upper torso, there's not going to be any paint on it except for that Autobot logo on there. And then some tan on the back, mainly for alt mode. Moving to the waist and lower legs, there's not going to be any sort of paint on them. And then finally moving to the lower legs and feet, there's going to be that same tan that we talked about before. And then there's going to be some orange detail on the spikes. And then a little bit of that same orange that's on those engine guns. So for the paint job of this guy, he does have some on there, which does look nice, but it's not a crazy amount. But now that we're done talking about paint, let's move on to posability. Starting with the head, it has no up articulation, but it is able to look left and right. Moving into the arms, they're only able to move about 45 degrees out to the side, which isn't that great. However, they are able to do a full 360, no problem. Talking about the lower arm, it does have two elbow joints thanks to the transformation, but at max, it's only slightly able to get more than a 90-degree bend. Moving down to the waist, he doesn't have an ab crunch, but he does have a waist swivel. Talking about the legs, they can go all the way forward, all the way back, and all the way to the side. For the knee, it's on a single hinge that's able to get about a 90-degree bend. Then talking about the feet, if the engine pieces aren't in, it has an ankle tilt up, ankle tilt down, and ankle tilt to the side. However, if you have the engine pieces in the legs, it does limit the ankle tilt up. So the overall posability on this guy isn't the greatest, but you can definitely still get him into some pretty solid poses. But now that we're done talking about posability, let's get into the transformation of this figure. When it comes to the transformation of this figure, it's pretty standard for your average Hasbro transformer. I will mention, due to being a weaponizer, that the limbs tend to pop off on the occasion. Specifically the arms, those tend to pop off fairly easily. Then the only part I'll mention that I had any sort of issue with was folding up the back. But overall, this transformation was fairly easy and didn't take me that long to do at all. And it was also pretty fun to do in the process as well. Then finally it comes out to what I think is a pretty awesome looking alt mode. And talking about the alt mode, I absolutely love this pickup truck mode. It just has this Mad Max vibe to it, and it goes along with the Junkion vibe as well. I love the grill on it, it just looks really menacing. And then those pipe attachments I talked about earlier really do look awesome on this alt mode. I even like how there's a hole in one of the back of the elbows that turns into a spot to put the little tire. So that way everything can be stored in the vehicle and you don't have to keep anything separate. But like I said before, I really do like this alt mode, and I think it's a fantastic looking pickup truck. So now that we're done talking about the alt mode, let's move on to my final thoughts on this figure. To start off, I want to say, even though I do have some complaints about this figure, I do think overall he is a really fun and cool looking figure. Yes, he is lacking in some points of articulation, but at the same time, he does have some fairly good overall articulation. And like I said before, I feel like he has some pretty long upper arms, but I feel like that also just because they go up so high. Because as I said before also, I really do like the overall sculpt of the arms. I think they look really cool and mean. But he is a really cool Junkion, and I'm really glad that we're getting something different besides just the retool of Retgar. Because even though that is a great mold, I feel like every Junkion wouldn't be the exact same, and they should have some variety to them. Then on top of that, he is a weaponizer with many accessories, so that just adds the amount of customizations you can do to these Junkions. So when it comes to my recommendation for this Junkion, I highly recommend him, especially if you plan on getting the rest of the Junkions. Because at first I didn't think I was going to be collecting all the Junkions, but now that I got my hands on this guy, now it makes me want to get the future releases and the ones that I missed in the past. But that's going to be my thoughts on Legacy Scraphook. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you already have this figure, if you plan on picking him up. Once again, if you enjoyed this review, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Also, once again, friendly reminder that 1 like equals 1 pat from my little buddy Doug. Finally, once again, if you enjoyed any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios, link in the description. But that's going to be it for me. I appreciate you checking out the video, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Peace!